Focus up, ladies. Good evening, and welcome to the birthing suite.
Did you ever wonder what would happen if Iron Man came back to the MCU?
It's good to be back.
Well, we've been thinking about it, and would it be good or bad? What would it mean? Let's discuss it in this video.
All right, I think we got this. Send them all.
We'll start off by kind of revisiting what Iron Man's role has been in the MCU so far. Like, how important was he as a character? If we attempt to answer this question, we kind of already know the answer, but let's just have a little bit of a recap to really establish the importance of his role in the MCU. So Iron Man has been a long-time hero, since way before the Avengers even came into play. He showed up in the movies as early as Spider-Man and Hulk way back in 2008, and ever since then, it has only been Robert Downey Jr. playing him, aside from all the animations which may or may not be canon. Come to think of it, isn't he actually one of the older Marvel characters that hasn't been recast yet? Unless I'm missing someone really important. Anyways, after the Avengers, Iron Man's role was not only in his solo films as he played a major leader, tactician, strategist, and comedian of the team of heroes. His wit did make us chuckle every now and then. His last solo film was back in 2013, and then in 2019 with Endgame, the Iron Man legacy came to an end.
Iron Man.
It wasn't entirely an end though, because Iron Man is still present and part of the MCU. In Spider-Man Far From Home, we are reminded again of Tony Stark's genius and the impact Iron Man had in Spider-Man's life in general.
I just wanted to be like you.
And I wanted you to be better.
He was like a father figure to the guy who never had an opportunity to have a role model. Not to mention, Iron Man was the one with the most global reach as well. Because of his role as an entrepreneur, there was nothing this guy couldn't do. There really is no lack of role for this man. He is the face of the Avengers. And his death in Endgame was something that shocked audiences and made the movie really memorable to watch. Now everyone remembers the movie where Iron Man died. So, which upcoming movies or TV shows have the potential to reintroduce Iron Man? Or at least let him appear as a cameo? Well, with the Phase 5 and Phase 6 repertoire introduced, there are a few places where Iron Man could possibly make a cameo, and the first one we would like to talk about is Ironheart. Now, we already know that Riri Williams is heavily inspired by Iron Man, so much so that her AI conscience is literally Tony Stark. Now that AI being not Tony could give room for Iron Man to at least make a cameo, which honestly would make sense and wouldn't be so bad if done right, but they could also just have that role played by a not RDJ. However, interestingly, Ironheart is also one of the most expensive Marvel TV shows. That gives us an inkling that maybe not all the budget went into the visual effects, but also to pay certain actors for their time and work? Well, that's just speculation for now, as nothing has been confirmed about that. But maybe. Oh, before I forget, please like and subscribe. I need to make my parents proud somehow. Okay, anyways, we'll talk about the comics here for a bit and the relationship between Ironheart and Iron Man. Contrary to what happened in the MCU, in the comics, Iron Man is actually in a coma after the events of Civil War II. And in Invincible Iron Man #1, it is revealed that Iron Man had actually uploaded his consciousness in an AI form into Riri Williams' suit. If the comics are any hint at what's coming, this could mean that possibly Iron Man could return in Ironheart as an AI consciousness who assists Riri Williams. If we remember in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Riri is seen working on a suit that is quite similar to Tony Stark's very first on-screen suit of armor in one of his earliest solo films. We know that Riri isn't nearly as rich as Tony to be able to acquire parts so valuable, and in the comics she is allowed to get those parts from Stark Industries or by borrowing from MIT. But in the MCU that we know, Iron Man and Ironheart haven't even met yet. We will again put this little speculation out there, that perhaps they already have. Because in 2022 during an interview, the director for Black Panther Wakanda Forever had already told us that Iron Man and Ironheart will have a complicated connection. Yes, okay, but how? When they haven't even met? We just think that it is quite possible that they already have met, and it is also a possibility that Mr. Stark prepared some countermeasures before the events of Endgame. It would make sense if he did, and it wouldn't be odd for such a genius to have done something like that, but we know that Marvel does tend to deviate from the comics quite a bit. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this one. Another potential appearance we mentioned earlier was Armor Wars. Now, the basic premise of Armor Wars in the comics is that Stark's inventions fall into the wrong hands, so he sets out to make things right by defeating those who have been using his inventions to cause harm. Some of these enemies include Beetle, Doctor Doom, Stiltman, Shockwave, Mauler, and many others. Stark technology was stolen and leaked by Justin Hammer as he hired Spymaster to do the job, and it was something that Iron Man feared, his inventions falling into the wrong hands. Now this whole arc is an Iron Man arc, but we don't have Iron Man in the MCU anymore, so presumably War Machine is going to do what Iron Man would have done. And this could spell out for a bit of an emotional story with James Rhodey protecting the legacy of a friend who passed away. We believe that there might be a cameo in this case, either through a flashback or some kind of message left behind by Iron Man, which could potentially be delivered either by Riri Williams or some pre-planned message left behind by him in one of his inventions, or, just as a note. Yeah, that would be underwhelming, but it could be as simple as a note, I'm just saying.
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
Okay, so for the last one we have Secret Wars. Now this one is a bit interesting because there was a Secret Wars arc written in 1984 and one written in 2015. We are going to be focusing more on the one from 2015 as the Secret Wars movie is being hyped up to be something huge, and we believe several heroes will return for their role in the film, and that includes Iron Man. The Secret Wars arc from 2015 ties in much closely with the current MCU narrative where the multiverse has come into play. And in this comic series, the multiple universes sort of collide to become this one universe called the Battle World, where all these heroes from different universes come together and even fight each other. So for this one, it would really make sense that Iron Man, one of the faces of the Avengers and Marvel in general, would reappear in another role, especially since this would more or less become the conclusion of the multiverse saga. There are also some sneaky sources that have confirmed Iron Man's return in Armor Wars and Secret Wars in particular, but there's a lot of similar rumors like that around for the hype, so we wouldn't give it too much of a thought, but just an honorable mention in case things do come into play like that. There are also more canon rumors regarding Iron Man's reappearance, such as the response by Mark Ruffalo stating that, "I'm not going to say it's not possible, but I'm not going to say it is." And it makes sense because the multiverse and time travel aspects could easily make it happen, but there is also the little comment where RDJ himself once said that he believes that the role is done. It's really on the fence, and anything could happen.
If I tell you what happens, it won't happen.
But then again, we also got this really firm refusal that Iron Man's just off the table, as Steven Broussard, the Vice President of Production and Development at Marvel, states that after these first 10 years of Marvel storytelling, torches are being passed, like with Robert Downey Jr. no longer being on the table and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a new generation stepping to the forefront, which again has always happened in the comics, he said. Well, okay, if you say so, Mr. Broussard, but we aren't going to fall for all this misdirection. We all know what's really going on here. So let's just start off by saying that mostly, bringing Iron Man back would be a bad idea. Now wait a minute, before you reach for that keyboard. He is definitely one of the most beloved characters of many, and there are probably those in the audience who will be excited by his appearance just because they could see him again. But would it be a good plot inclusion by Marvel? Most likely not. And there are a couple reasons for this. The first one being that Iron Man is done. We all saw him die, and that was an emotional moment for us, and then if you just bring him back, then why did I waste all of those days crying and depressed over his death? I'm okay. In an interview with Joe Rogan, Robert Downey Jr. was even hesitant to return as Iron Man. "It's scary," he said. And we agree. The response from the audience would be a very scary thing to anticipate, and by now it's difficult to imagine an Iron Man other than RDJ. It isn't impossible for him to be recast and a new Iron Man to be introduced because of the multiverse aspect, but it would definitely be strange and could be met with backlash. It would really be a risky move for Iron Man to be brought back so soon too, especially since it has only been about 3 years since he took the exit from the MCU. So you can't even bet on the nostalgia factor as a catalyst to bring back his reappearance in a way that would be positively received. Aside from the potentially negative backlash, you can also already see that the creators at Marvel are trying to move on from the older heroes to more of the newer ones, which is actually more exciting than seeing those same handful of heroes over and over again. I mean, think about all those heroes we haven't seen yet because of the focus on the more popular ones. We could have Sentry, who is literally Marvel's version of Superman, or Nova, our favorite space cop, or Omega the Unknown, who has been forgotten how many times over the years? There is an endless array of really cool characters and storylines yet to be introduced, and we already know a lot about the current MCU characters. They are widely popular and their story has already been told and is actually sort of running out. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. Most of the characters have already been going into retirement because even they are getting tired of representing themselves. Now as fans, we really love seeing some of the same characters take the screen once a year, and the next year. But if it keeps happening every year, Spider-Man Part 100, all at home? Get it? Because no one is showing up at the theater? But that's why we have all these new characters: Ironheart, Echo, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and many others who are still in line for the screen. Yes, most of them are females, but we would love to see something other than what we already have, and it would be a good move from Marvel to grow an audience for these characters as long as it's done properly. The beloved characters that we already have are great. They have amassed a fan base for years, but there are still some that we wish we could see, and even though some of us might still show up to see Spider-Man 100, there will still be those who would get tired of it. And to stop these characters in the franchise from going stale, we are already seeing changes being made. However, in this multiverse of madness, if Iron Man were to reappear, what would that mean for the MCU? For starters, we can expect that Spider-Man could get some closure, as the hero has already lost a lot in No Way Home. Perhaps a moment of guidance from Iron Man and a goodbye that was left unsaid. Or as a mentor for Riri Williams, who seems to be taking the mantle as a new individual version of Iron Man, like a montage of bonding between the two as a hero and his successor. Perhaps a moment of comedic relief where he takes over Stark Industries again, and possibly a wholesome moment where he reunites with his family once again. There are many possibilities, and more than 30 different armors unaccounted for, which could just appear in Armor Wars, but with his reappearance, maybe we could see even more armors and inventions. But what would Iron Man's reinstatement in the franchise serve in the grand scheme of things? We can only assume that this could entail the Avengers reassembling once again, perhaps for a final battle, or just more fights with Iron Man's leadership. But would that be a good idea? It really depends on how the concept is executed, and it really all comes down to the plans at Marvel HQ. But all in all, his appearance really isn't exactly necessary. The MCU has been continuing without Iron Man so far. Well, we still have his gadgets around, but for him to physically return isn't something that needs to be focused on at this point in time, where the MCU clearly needs a new direction to go towards. If we really think about it, what would be stopping the creators at Marvel to be holding back on an Iron Man reappearance?
Why don't we just do things our own way?
Well, first and foremost, it's the aspect of the negative backlash from the audience. Why would they be happy about a character reappearing when he died only just recently? It kinda defeats the point of killing him in the first place, doesn't it? And if we add on to this, what purpose would this reappearance really serve? The MCU seems to be doing just fine without him, and it's honestly a bit interesting to see how the remaining and newer heroes are going to deal with future enemies without Iron Man's help, since he was one of the pack of leaders devising intricate plans, inventions, and strategies to take down enemies. Plus, even the creators might be done with Iron Man for a good long time, and it would actually be a reasonable decision as new heroes need to be introduced. The narrative has to change into something different, or else it would become stale with its repetitive nature, and ultimately meet the end of a franchise. They have to keep it alive somehow, don't they? So that concludes this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below on your feelings about Iron Man returning. Would it really be a good idea? Should they do it so soon? Well anyways, until next time, thanks for watching.